So yeah, this is OpenOUSD. This is our team for the moment. So our goal is basically to shed some light into the budget of the OUSD central office. The central office programs are basically any program that's not managed by school sites themselves. So you can think of like transportation, police, special ed, HR, and a bunch of admin stuff. There's actually a pretty broad range of programs that fall in that category, and it makes up a sizable chunk of the general OUSD budget. And our goal is just to give more access to that to the community, so that they have a tool available to them to be part for when they're part of the discussion. And in the future, we hope to be able to open it up so that we can actually give them direct channels to be part of the discussion around how OUSD spends its money. So to give a little bit of what that looks like, this is the website. So here we just have like, description of central programs. You can see how funding is allocated to different categories of central programs, and we have a list of the programs here themselves. We have some descriptions of the categories here, along with how the programs are split up. And then for each program itself, we have some data about like the spending, staff positions, budget, and things like that. One of the big changes that we've made recently is that we finally have the full site translated into Spanish, which is lovely. So as you can see, everything now switches neatly between the two. Yeah, so going back, progress we've made so far. We just updated the data set to the last school year, and we're presenting additional information about changes in financial data. Like I mentioned, we just finished the Spanish translation of our current content, and also recently pushed out a version to the live site. So for you folks, we're now working on trying to get the word out about this. So if you could retweet at OpenOUSD that we have translated everything, that there's been a big update, and just get more eyes on this, that'd be awesome. As far as what our goals are moving forward, we have a document where each central program basically gave us a description of what they do, and John worked on creating more like bite-sized, readable versions of that, and we're still working on getting those ready to be uploaded to the site. We're also trying to do more community outreach to get direction in how we can make the information on our site more accessible to the community. So in terms of help, we can always use promotion, right? If anybody has contacts within the OUSD community that we can do outreach to, that'd be fantastic as well. Again, editing and writing content. And then once we have new content in English, it always needs to be translated into Spanish. So those are areas that would be lovely. As far as like the technology stack goes, we're using Gatsby, React, Contentful, and yeah, those are the main things for the site, and that's it. Unless I'm forgetting something. Yeah.
Sounds like you got a confirmation from there. It looks real good. We normally go into a question and answer right afterwards. Are there any questions about the project?
Since no one else jumped in, I'll just ask if you can briefly explain how the Spanish translation was done. Is it like a sister website that's kind of existing in parallel, or what, how did you do that?
So I think John can talk more to like how we actually got the translations.
Okay. Yeah, I know this is the kind of thing that might take a long time to explain, but yeah, that's okay.
I can say it quickly. Vanessa, who's on our team, did the bulk of the actual translation work. Also, Maria, who joined us more recently. And that was pretty quick. They did an amazing and very fast job. The longer part was we're mostly using Contentful to house like content in multiple languages. And then there's basically a React library or a plugin in Gatsby, which is basically a React library that dynamically switches the content on the page.
Sweet.
So it's the same site, but just swapping up.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it seems like the type of a feature that a number of other the sites will need to consider. So it's good to know how it was done. Any other questions? Okay, with that, I believe next on the list is Councilmatic. That's me. Let me go ahead and kick this one off. This isn't sharing yet, is it? My screen, does anyone see? Not yet.
No, it isn't.
There we go. Thank you. Now it should be.
Yep.
Okay. So the project is Councilmatic, the project with a funny name, but when I was looking at other brigades, I found that there is a Councilmatic. It actually started with another brigade, was completely reworked here, but the other one still exists, so you'll see the name out there. On the Code for America site, they talk about what if all government services were this good. So the first question is always, what government service are we addressing here? And it's the Oakland City Council meetings. When I naively joined the meeting, I was just thinking there was a city council meeting, but then quickly learned, and you will see within the application, that there are all these separate committees. All the committees have to be scheduled. Those schedules can change. The meeting can be canceled, something like that. So that information needs to be readily available. But then the big thing is that any item to be brought up in these meetings needs to be included ahead of time on the agenda with something written up. That's a lot of information. If you want to participate in the government, you need access, or the government actions, you need access to that. A basic tenet of Councilmatic is representation begins with access. The City of Oakland does provide all the information about City Council meetings, committee meetings, and this is what it looks like. Most of you have seen this before. This is what it looks like on a desktop. That's great. It works very well, except then this is what it looks like on a phone. And of course, you can tip it sideways so it will be landscape, and then you can pinch and expand, and you can find everything you need to, but you can also get a sense of how tedious that may be. One of the earliest findings, or one of the findings from the earliest research, is that all populations, but especially the underrepresented groups, were more likely to use their phone to access government information. This was a number of years ago, and we know that at that time, mobile was important for the underrepresented groups. It's just continually become more important. So let's first look at Councilmatic on a desktop. And instead of the grid that you saw before, this is showing you upcoming meetings. That's the way it opens. You can filter here. Currently it's showing all meetings, but if you want to look for a particular committee, you can make that change there. This is showing you what's coming up today, then later in the week. So this is all looking forward. If you want to look backwards, which is important because sometimes you want to look for agenda items to see if an item was passed or not, or what the discussion was, who voted how. You click the link for view the previous meeting, and you can see that information as well. It's also kind of nice that at a glance, if you want to see what's on the meeting agenda, you click this and there's a drop-down list of the items. Then, of course, the last part of this is you can go to a link to the agenda itself. It shows you all the items, all the proposals, all the information that everyone has or needs to have going into the meeting. But then the question is, what does this look like on a mobile device? The desktop was built first, and then it was modified to work well with mobile, and I think the current website does. So that's what you're looking at here. This is all backed by research. Back in 2017, there were some initial user interviews. 2019, there was a student group from Carnegie Mellon that as a project, they gave their time. They looked at people who use the site. I believe that this group also looked at people who might use the site but weren't aware of it, just to check in the more general population, maybe what would bring them to the site or serve their needs. And then in 2020, we had interviews done. There were Facebook dialogues, and this is what led us to some of the more current changes, which you'll see on the right two panels. These are prototypes. They aren't in place yet, but they try and take what we had with the mobile design and just make it more accessible. One of the, I think it's kind of a cool item here is the icon, so that at a glance, if you're looking at a meeting, you know if there's a small business topic, a police topic, a housing topic on there. Just trying to make it even easier to use, easier to read. There is a Councilmatic Twitter link, and what this link does, it just simply tells you when a meeting is coming up. It shows you here, and it's sent out a week before the meeting, day before each of the meetings, and on the day of the meeting. It's not any more fancy than that at this time, but if you want the information coming to you, that's a good way to get it. One of the developments underway, which will make a dramatic change to this, is a change notification feature. So you can sign up and say that I want to know about a particular meeting or the general city council meeting, and I want to know anytime a new meeting is scheduled or if a schedule is changed. You pick your information, and what we'll be doing is taking each of the meeting data sets, comparing one to the next, identifying what the changes are, dating those changes, and then we'll be able to report out, actually send out by email information on the changes that are occurring. So opportunities to help. Publicity and SEO are always important. We do have quite a number of regular users, but I think that could increase dramatically. More user research. It's always interesting to learn new things about how people use it or what features may be useful. One place we're sitting now is we need to build out the new UI that I showed you earlier. The application uses Jinja 2 templating. Not in my direct skill set. I'll pick it up if I have to. If anyone else has that or wants to learn it, come join us. Also, in that initial spreadsheet, almost all that information is through an API, but there are a few exceptions, and they're good pieces of information. We would like to include them, but we will need to set up some scraping to grab that data. And the building out of the change notification. We have it designed, we have test algorithms in place running, but that still needs to be built out. So in summary, Councilmatic makes information about city council meetings more accessible. We're always looking at there's no representation without access. We want to make sure that the information is out there to support access. The Slack channel is available if you want to join us for the project. The Twitter handle, strictly for meeting information. We have GitHub where the development is going on. The site is oaklandcouncil.net, and we always need help. With that, let me return this. Any questions I can answer?
Hey, Tom, I was curious, do you think that, well, I guess the school district also uses Legistar, and it also has all the same problems of city council. I was just curious, like, do you think that Councilmatic could be easily pointed at any kind of Legistar instance, or is there a lot of like very special city council stuff?
No, it's very general, and in fact, I had no idea that the school system uses it, or OUSD, so you would have no trouble directing it there. Changes would be minor. I also know that San Francisco as a city, for their city council, uses it, and I've thought, especially after we get the change notice working, that we may contact them just to let them know in case there's any interest there. But no, if any part of this is useful to you, let me know, and we can, clone it, repoint it, and see what happens. But it should work just fine.
That's great to know. Thanks.
That's exciting for me. And anytime the work has a wider application with very little additional effort, I think that's great. Anything else? Any other questions?
I have a couple questions. One is just sort of, I guess, a larger one based on what John just asked, which is there any use case for adding or for sucking in other city meetings outside of city council for this? Or does this need to really be scoped specifically for city council? That's sort of more bigger picture question, I guess, just a strategy question that kind of came up as John asked his.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, I just noticed that the GitHub repo documentation seems like it's out of date, and I'm wondering if there's any plan to update that, just because, like, if somebody wants to try playing with the code base, it seems a little bit opaque because basically there's like a big, this is completely wrong message on the repo.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's going to be an update to that we can look for.
Okay, let me go with the first question. That what's required for this application to be used for any sort of meeting is that it's on the Legistar system, because we're set up for the Legistar API. It's designed to make the calls, hold the information, then reformat that information. So if any other meeting system uses Legistar, yes. Otherwise, no, it would be a major rebuild. As far as the GitHub repo, that's one of those areas that is, I was asked this week, well, what's our, I forgot, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months plan, something like that. And that's one of the things that we really have to get in order. That we've had such a small group for such a long time that we've just kind of handled things that need to be handled or that seemed like fun. But documentation is so important that if anyone would join us just to want to help with documentation, love you for it. So the invitation is out there. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to do a quick switch back, and La Escuelita is next. Is that Laurel that's presenting that?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Hey, everyone. I am Laurel. I'm the project lead for La Escuelita. They are a kindergarten through 8th grade school, kind of over by Laney College, if you're familiar with the area. And the backstory here is that OUSD doesn't give our local schools resources for building their own website, which was an inconvenience before the pandemic and then became a rather critical issue. So they spun up an immediate site just to get through virtual learning, but we've been working with kind of their technology teacher, not necessarily a tech lead per se, but the person who teaches computer skills to the students to put together this site. And we are really, really close to going live and launching. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to just share it with you all, kind of getting to the point of shipping something. Before the pandemic, a really critical piece for them was enrollment. And that is because the funding is determined by enrolled students. So this was information that we paid a lot of attention to. What they had found in the past is that people would just show up at odd times to try and do school tours. They didn't have a way of pushing out this information. And then we've put together curriculum overviews, thinking if you were almost a prospective customer with this school, what would you want to find? And so there's pretty detailed curriculum information in all of the drop downs here. And then some other kind of points of interest. Parent resources are really geared towards coronavirus and also remote learning. Just resources that the school is able to provide, getting technology resources out to their students. So that's all on here. And then the school also provides a number of services, healthcare, vision, a variety of different programs. And so that all is found here. And then even things just like staff contact information. They have these Bitmojis, which we weren't quite sure at first how this would work out, and they kind of turned out really, really fun compared to traditional photos. So some of the things we're still working on, we're still doing some basic QAing, trying to wait for some last minute content to come in. And then we've done research with teachers and wanted to do it with parents and had a lot of issues with recruitment. And so we're trying to do a card sort now with some teachers and having them push it out to their parents. The good thing is, this is built, maybe you can already tell, I didn't mention it, in Google Sites, which is convenient since the rest of the school's kind of locked into the Google system. So it's really modular and it's really easy for us to quickly move things around. So if the card sort indicates anything kind of related to our navigation needing changes or moving content around, that piece is actually pretty easy to accommodate. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If members of my team on the call, feel free to jump in, anything you would like to add. And of course, any questions, feel free.
No, you did a great job, Laurel. Thanks again for sharing this demo night.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a question and a comment.
Go for it.
My comment is like, amazing, awesome job. This is so cool. I love seeing this. It's exciting to see it come to fruition. I know you all have been just like working really hard to get this going. And I really appreciate that it was built in Google Sites, which I think is something I kind of think that we often get like married or wedded to these sort of very engineering centric platforms as developers, as coders, as tech teams. And I think it's easy to forget that ultimately we're trying to build stuff for people who are going to have to use this stuff. And this seems like a really great example of building for the multiple layers of users, right? Like the teachers and staff have to use this from the back end side in terms of content and planning. And then the parents, obviously, and students need to use it on the consumption side. And I just think that you've done a really nice job balancing that. And I appreciate that as somebody who just doesn't generally come to tech from an engineering background. I think that's really important. And it's a good lesson for us as a brigade to think about. That's my comment. My question is, what are the next steps around, like, do you have an ETA for launch? Or is this live now? I think
it's not live. We unlinked the domain so that while we're playing around in there still, it's not accessible. It's really on our stakeholder, and she's just been a little slow, I assume impacted by, some of the events last Wednesday with teaching small kids. It's entirely in their court of when we get the thumbs up. Most of the things that we're waiting on here are not mission critical. It's mostly just content that's missing. So we're going to do some updates and say, you know, content coming soon. And aside from that, it's kind of like we're at that 95% there, right? So I would prefer to just put it out into the world. But it's of course up to our stakeholders. So hopefully.
And do you see, I know you've talked about templating this for other OUSD schools. Do you see that being sort of in the game plan at all? Is that something?
We probably have to do a little bit more research into that, but I'm curious if there's even just a way of copying the template we have here if we removed everything that was specific to La Escuelita, almost make something kind of plug and play. And we also haven't done outreach with the district themselves yet, but in some ways this using Google Classrooms was so simple. And our stakeholder was able to learn how to use it and change things pretty easily. Our whole team was able to. So it seems like a good platform to use as a model if we were to extend it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let us know if like there's even if it's just like connecting to people. I don't know if John, if you have connections over in your neck of the woods around just like folks in OUSD who might be interested in just talking more about it. And I know Darlene Flynn might actually she might have some folks we might be able to reach out to. I know that we had sort of had a little somewhat of a back and forth there. So let's keep talking about this stuff. This is awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Laura, thank you. It's impressive.
Thanks. Not the most technically advanced project I know, but one that we can all feel pretty good about.
Well, I think that's what Jess highlighted, that it doesn't have to be, you always have to ask, does it serve the function? And you've taught me a real lesson to see what you can turn out with Google Sites. So I just have a lot of respect for what you've done here, even though it isn't the highest tech.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Jess, you were going to give a quick note on the work for OpenOakland.org. Do you want to go ahead and take that?
Let me find my Chrome. So I'll just share a little bit of the recent updates to, why won't it let me choose captions? Huh. Okay, that's Zoom, that's why. Stand by, guys. I just want to make sure I'm assuming you're not seeing captions yet. I'm not sure why Chrome will not let me share. Oh well, sorry if folks need captions, I apologize. I switched over to Chrome thinking that this would allow me to do that. Anyway, so we have a GitHub repo. It has all of the information you need to get involved and start contributing. We use this projects tab, and the ongoing improvements backlog has all of our prioritized issues ready to work on. So you can pick up any of these and just start cranking away if you're so inclined. We also have a backlog of issues that still need some definition and input. You're welcome to comment on those. And I wanted to share some of the latest work, although I'm wondering, Rob, if you may want to be interested in walking us through this. If not, I'm happy to do it.
Oh, yeah, you might go ahead and do it. I am terrible at Zoom, so
okay, fair enough.
I trust you on this.
Okay, so this is our current homepage, and it's pretty straightforward. You'll see that this is the most recent notice for Open Oakland statement on the insurrection at the Capitol last week, and feel free to take a look at that. But if we go to our projects page, our current projects page, one of the things that Rob rolled out this week, which was great for us, was he adjusted the link colors and the link styling so that it actually meets accessibility guidelines now. So it's higher contrast, it's more visible and much more clear. Our brand style guide is a little bit thin in terms of typography and stuff like that. So that's something we'll work on this year to clean up and tighten up and expand on. But in the interim, I think this is a great, this just makes it a lot more accessible for folks to be able to distinguish what are links visually. The other big improvement that he is currently working on, which I'm super stoked about right now, as you can see, it's a just really long page of project cards that just goes on and on and on and on, and is broken up by this weird section on becoming a project, and then goes into the past projects and more cards. So anyway, this is a really pain in the butt to navigate. It's not user friendly, as you can see. So Rob is working on this very cool filter for us, where right now it's a status filter where you can select which projects you want to see. If I only want to see ongoing projects, I only find one OpenOakland.org project, and it just takes me right into the rest of the page content. If I want to see ongoing and active projects, I just select that. And you'll see now all of a sudden I have all of the active projects as well. So this is a super cool improvement. I think it's going to make it a lot easier for people to find projects that are appropriate for them. We have some other filter options other than status in the hopper that may also help. So if somebody wants to search by technology, that might be that we could conceivably provide that as a filter. I imagine there's other tags as well that we could think about. I forget what else is in the issue offhand. But this is, for me, a huge improvement. And I know he's still tweaking, and there are some questions in the existing issue, open questions around, for example, how do we handle the introductory text that no longer exists if we have just a collection of like multiple tags. And so we're talking about potentially color coding, adding a tag for status to the card itself so that you can visually differentiate. If I'm looking at active and ongoing, I can tell which is which. And then probably rolling that introductory content into this section instead. So that is the Open Oakland website. As Tom has mentioned, our goal is for this site to be a hub of information and really sort of your go-to place for resources, whether you're a new member or an existing member or even a non-member, somebody who's sort of just checking us out for the first time. Right now, we really only speak to people who aren't so familiar with us. It's not super friendly for project leads, project team members, people who are looking for resources. We do have a resource page, but it's not particularly organized. So there's definitely a lot of improvements, particularly around Site IA. And so we're going to be working on that over the coming months as well. So if you're interested, drop into project-00- website and check us out, or hit me up in Slack or email jess@openoakland.org. And that is the site. And if you have questions, let me know.
Any questions for Jess in the site?
I see Brooks mentioned.
And Nils?
But yeah, go ahead, Nils.
Yeah, I was wondering if we'd be able to filter by project needs too.
I love it. So that is something I think that project leads will need to have a conversation about. One thing I've noticed over time is that we don't have a consistent method for sharing out our help wanted needs. And demo night has been sort of the traditional time when we've kind of made our plea. But I would suggest that there's probably a more regular cadence we could use, and this is a great channel for that. to. It does require some effort because that requires updating the site, and it requires project leads being willing to take that time to let us know what needs to get updated, and then getting those, updates on there. I think that's something I'd like to do in an email newsletter as well. I think that should have a section for help wanted, contributors wanted. So project leads, maybe that's something we can put on a steering committee discussion item.
Sounds good.
Anyone else? Jess, I think you were selling the site short when you were talking about maybe it's not ideal for project leads in different groups. The fact that there is one place to go, okay, that's the start. That's so important. And now we can keep refining it. So I think that's the mindset. It's great we have it. Let's just, keep building from there.
Thank
So
you. That's my perfectionist
I know.
thing getting in the way, which is problematic on many levels.
Right. Okay. Has anyone else come in on projects? Anyone else other than the projects we've demoed that maybe needs to get one in here?